Even though there really hasn't been a great excuse to talk about Microsoft's beloved dual screen device, the Surface Duo, or of course, Surface Duo 2, for quite some time, it still does crop up in my comment section all the time. I'm talking about other devices, and I have such a strong contingent of Duo loving commenters it's always just persistently there in my comments. And that kind of got me thinking the other day. I wonder how many people watching my content are still using their Surface Duo or Duo 2. And if they are, in what capacity are they using it? So I thought, let's make a poll. And after a few days have gone by, this could be a piece of content that Surface Duo users could potentially enjoy. Any excuse to be able to kind of reminisce and talk about that lovely old device is, I think, a good one. So let's turn our attention to that poll. And look, guys, let's just be honest. There's not a lot of tech news going on right now. I'm currently snowed in. I can't even leave the house if I wanted to. So we're going to do what we can do, and we're going to try to have some fun talking about Surface Duo one more time. So how many of you are still using your Surface Duo? And I didn't say or Duo 2, but I assume people understood that that was included in there. As usual, to see the result, you can just vote and then remove your vote. I have to tell people that every time, and that's always the case. Vote, see the results, remove your vote, and you're good to go. 22% of people, this was 586 votes. That's a pretty good amount of votes for 2 days. 22%, almost a quarter of you, still have your primary sim in a Duo 1 or a Duo 2. I've got to admit to you, that is surprising to me. That is a large amount of people. Now, maybe I am showing a little bit of my own, let's just call it privilege. That's totally fine. It's an expensive phone, and so a lot of you probably spent maybe $1,000 plus on a Duo 2, and let's be honest, wasn't that long ago. 2021, yeah, okay, that's getting to be a little bit of a long time. When was it? The 22nd of 2021? That's a little while ago, but a lot of people don't buy phones every year, every other year. Some people wait 3-4 years. They use a phone until, as they say, the wheels fall off, and some of you are doing that with your Duo 2, and that's really, really interesting. Maybe I need to do a follow-up poll of like, how do you feel about that? If you're still daily driving it, like, what's that like? How are you enjoying it? How is it holding up? Another 14%, though, are still carrying it as a secondary device, but their primary SIM is in another device. So a little over a third of people are still presumably using it most every day. Either it's, an everyday thing, or they've got it with them most of the time in general. Again, that's more than I would have expected. 22% more say I'm still using it, and that's a typo there. The word like got in there one extra time somehow. I'm still using it occasionally like a tablet is what I meant to put there. A lot of likes in there. I'm like a teenager. And that's about where I thought it would be. I think a lot of people, I figured a lot of people would still have it around and use it as an e-reader, use it as a tablet, as a media device. That makes a lot of sense to me. 14% said it's gathering dust in a drawer, and that is the situation that I am in. And then 29% said my Duo is long gone. So presumably they sold it, they traded it, got rid of it in some capacity. That's more people still using it quite a bit than I think most people would expect. If we lump all of this together, 22 and 22 is 44%, 54%, 58% of people, the majority, are still using their Duo or Duo 2 in some capacity. And maybe, we do need that follow-up poll, maybe a couple of follow-up polls. What's that like? But also, what are you doing with it? Did you install Windows 11 on it? Are you using some of Ty's Android ROMs? What exactly are you doing with this device? And maybe we can, glean some information here about those questions by going through these comments. First off, if you did indeed vote, thank you for that. And if you commented, I'm going to try to read through these and go through these as quickly as I can. Now, let's pull out some interesting stuff, right? I want to highlight the Duo users in my comments, and we're going to do that by reading some of these comments. This is a cool one. Jay says it's still his primary. He loves it. And not only that, they've dropped it several times, some harsh treatment, and they would buy a Duo 3 as soon as it was announced. That's incredible. Somebody that's had such a good experience that even some of the bad things that have happened, they'd still buy a Duo 3. That's really cool to me, actually. Daryl says it's a Kindle and a OneNote machine. I think that's an extremely valid use case, and it's something that it's going to be great at across the board. Optimus Brides here says they had a Surface Duo 2, got the OnePlus Open and sent it back because they felt like it was going to break. Got the Fold 5 and sent it back because they didn't feel like it was worth the price. Now they're back on the Duo 2 and they're wondering if they should go for a like new Pixel Fold or just ride it out with Duo. I don't normally give like purchasing advice to people, but based on your prior two statements, I'd say probably just roll with Duo. If the Fold 5 and the Open didn't do it for you, I doubt that the Pixel Fold is going to do it for you either. Maybe I'm wrong, but if you're cool with the Duo, just let that thing ride. Andy Warhol says that Duo 1 is too much of a security risk, and yes, it is no longer getting security patches, although I will sort of pump the brakes a little bit on that. As long as you keep your apps updated and you keep the Google Play services updated, unless you have a very specific use case, a very specific job, it's probably going to be just fine. Most of the phones, if you teleport it to your local Walmart or something and you could get everybody together and check the most recent security patch on their Android devices, most of them are going to be behind by several months, if not longer. That's just how most phones are. So I don't think that's as big a deal as some people think it is. Although, Andy, Mr. Warhol, that may not be the case for you. That's the decision you have to make. But yeah, most people not going to really be bothered. Phil, great consistent viewer and commenter on the channel, still dailying the bumperless, or no, bumpless. It's like, man, no protection at all. Maybe it's bumperless and bumpless Surface Duo 2. What he actually means, if you don't know, let's go to Phil's channel because they've got their own solid YouTube channel as well. They posted a lot of good stuff. That's a solid video too there from Phil if you haven't watched that. But he did a video right here where he dug into a Surface Duo 2, took the thing apart, far braver than I would ever be, and literally removed the camera module and then put the thing back together like that. So it's a Duo 2 with sort of the form factor of a Duo 1, no bump. Big shout out to Phil for that. Zoidster says, it's my second primary. I don't think that's how the word primary works. I don't think you can do that, but maybe you can. I do very little through my actual phone number, and WhatsApp now allows 2 devices. I can pick up the Duo or my iPhone if I only want to carry 1 device. That's cool. So switching to Nova, I enjoy using it as a single screen tablet. So I guess you're able to not see the crease, the hinge down the middle, something I definitely am unable to ignore, but seems like you're having a good time with it. This is a really cool one. FX Editor says they got one on a Woot sale, and they've been using it as the courier it was meant to be. They said they take it with them on the set when they're supervising visual effects. The implementation of OneNote is good, and the camera is good enough for reference pictures that they need to take. Really using it as like a proper working device. They need NFC, looking out for a Surface Duo 2. If they can find one cheap. I've noticed that used Duo 2s have really not gotten all that cheap, even all these years on. I just don't think that they made nearly as many of them, and that has definitely impacted that resale price point. Waffleless Rex says they have it still as the backup for their Pixel Fold, and that the Kindle app is not as good on the Pixel Fold as it was on Duo 2, and the ease of multitasking is tempting. Keyboard popping up on one screen. I've talked about that directly with regard to the Pixel Fold, and I totally agree. It's a great feature, and if you don't know what we're talking about here, I can kind of quickly demonstrate it, I guess. If you are doing some split-screen multitasking, and I'm going to go type over here on Threads, a keyboard pops up and covers the entire screen. On Duo 2, the keyboard only pops up over here, and if the app is over here, the keyboard only pops up over there, and the result is the app that you're not typing on, the other app, isn't being obscured at all. Everything stays exactly as it was before. That's how it works on Duo, and I would love to see that be how it works on other Android devices as well. Captain Blaze says, audio transport duties. Rune, I don't know what these things are. Sirius XM. Not what I expected would be the end game for this device, but it is better than expected in its new role. Cool. Your Internet Mom says Duo 1 still primary, almost never take calls on it though. If I had to, I think I'd switch to something less annoying to talk on. Yeah, it's not fun to take phone calls on because it's really wide and big. I almost always either have earbuds in, and if I don't, I'm probably going to use speakerphone if I'm around the house or something like that. So phone's pretty much never here. I don't think I've ever taken a phone call on my Pixel Fold with it like this. I think it's always been speaker or earbuds, but yeah, totally valid there. Brian Taylor says swap to a Pixel Fold and sold Duo 2 on Swappa to cover the expense. Freddie Hill says his Surface Duo does everything that they want it to do. They have an iPhone for a work phone, but Surface Duo is good for media consumption and Tint Mode. Tint Mode is so underrated. You don't need a kickstand anymore. You can just put it up like a tent. There you go. You're watching content. Yes, it is my daily driver. Waiting on Microsoft's next phone. I hope you're not going to be waiting too long, Freddie, but you might indeed be. Cornell Wells says, I use mine here and there. It's still a great phone, but slowly becoming dated. Absolutely true. Joe says, I still use my Duo 2. It's not my main driver, but I use it mainly in my house. I use it daily in my house, I should say. So that's cool. So they're finding uses for it still. And this is kind of why I ask these questions and have these sorts of things. For people like Elvin who are reading these responses and seeing if it makes sense for them to maybe look for one. User something says it's fun and productive and that the logical and functional aspects of their Duo 2 far outweighs some of the weaker aspects of it. Seminole Steve says they're going back and forth between Duo 1 and Duo 2. Just can't replace the dual screen experience on anything else. I totally can understand that, even with Pixel Fold, as much as I love it. It is not a true replacement for the dual screen lifestyle. Lady Blah Blah says still using Duo 1 as their main phone. Getting a bit old now, looking for some other phones. And they're looking at the Fairphone number 5. And I believe I responded to this and said, yeah, it's a phone I'd like to check out sometime for sure. Definitely beginning to get a little bit old. John Adams, wow, we have Andy Warhol and a former president in my comment section. I'd still be using it if the battery hadn't degraded so much. Definitely did see some battery life degradation for me as well. It looks like Dantastic had a similar experience. I'm not even going to attempt to read that name. Sorry. Wish I can see any news. The Duo 3 is coming soon. Duo 3 is not coming soon. So sorry to push you in the other direction. James, unfortunately, my Duo 1 became unusable for my day-to-day, so I ended up selling and buying a Moto Razr 2022. That's a great phone from what I hear. Andy Warhol once again says it would be nice if you did a hard look video into why they got scared to continue, which I believe I responded to as well. I've covered it several times, and then I gave them a short version, and it looks like they got really mad at me for responding to I guess they took offense to the way that I put that. Sorry, Andy. I think we can all maybe strive to be a little bit less sensitive and maybe be a little bit more generous in our interpretations with text on the internet. I fall short of this occasionally myself, but it's something that we can all potentially strive to do better, to assume that when we read something, and if we read it and we think, wow, that seemed randomly very rude, just assume maybe there was a misunderstanding. And if you respond in a reasonable manner, and then they still come back at you in a really rude way, then yeah, you might have been right. But it's possible that this was typed with no ill intention and that I wasn't attempting to be rude at all. I was just saying, yeah, I've talked about this several times. Here's the short version in case you missed it. Maybe you were seeing an attack where there wasn't one. We'll keep moving from here. M. Rack of all trades says that their hinge broke. That's actually something I didn't hear a whole lot of, but I'm sure hardware failures like that absolutely happen. Reviews for Nerds, another friend of the channel and another good YouTube channel you could definitely go subscribe to. They do cover Surface Duo themselves. You may already be familiar with them from those videos. They say that their Duo is running one of Ty's ROMs, Duo 2, always with them, with a secondary SIM prepared to jump to the head of the class if their Z Flip 3 dies. Very cool. Prime Cash says, Duo 2 is amazing. 2 years in, won't change phones unless it's a corporate requirement, and then I would just add a secondary device. That's awesome. Still absolutely loving their Duo. Alex says they stopped using since they broke the screen. Sorry to hear that. That's a bummer. Mo says, I have a problem with my Surface Duo 2. Left screen has some points that don't have touch response anymore. Couldn't find any better Duo community to ask. It sounds like you just have potentially, I would say this. I'm not going to help you troubleshoot this too deeply because it's just one of those things that it's a can of worms, I guess. But what I would try is if you factory reset it and that did not help, you very possibly have some sort of touch digitizer failure happening, in which case you may be out of luck on that one. Rax Central said, I gave it up for my Z Fold 4. Wish I kept it, but realistically, it would have sat in a drawer forever. There's nothing wrong with that. It's what I do. I just like to keep it. Scooter never had one, unfortunately. Maybe you'll find one cheap eventually. Rob says, it was a cool concept. Microsoft likes to chase shiny new toys, though, which for now is large language models. Ironic, since AI could have made a device like Duo more useful. And I responded to that one as well. Can't read that one either. I have Project Genesis, so I have to use the Motorola phone. I do not know what Project Genesis is. 5G company building powerful 5G. Okay, that's interesting. Didn't know what that was. Stan says both duos are long gone. Microsoft abandoned a duo syncing ship. Z Fold, Pixel Fold are companies I trust. And Thomas here says it's still their primary phone. They're running the Android 14 ROM by Ty. And in fact, they've got an article here which you can go read about what to do with the Surface Duo 2 in 2024. Thomas, very cool developer, if I'm remembering correctly, if you're the same Kenneth that I am thinking of. I believe you are. Yeah, I believe you are. Nice guy. Had some fun chats on Threads already. And those are all of the comments. This is going to be a long video, and it's going to be a video that is only for very specific people that watch my channel. If this wasn't for you, hopefully you didn't watch all of it anyways, because that would have been a boring experience for you. If it was for you, I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you watched it, and hopefully you enjoyed it. Hit those comments down below, and give some more. What are you doing with your Duo right now in 2024? Share those stories and reminisce about better times. Guys, thanks for watching. Subscribe for more content like this, and until next time, stay nerdy, my friends.